we're back. And you just suggested let's pick up again in 2019 because you got some stuff you still want to talk about there.
So
let's hear it.
So I had been doing a lot of bigger races. Went to nationals and got dropped.
So nationals, national championships for under 23 riders.
It was the under 23.
Which were combined as also junior, but you were already over 18, so
yes.
you had to ride in the under 23.
I was 20 at that point.
And that means you basically, depending on the year, but there's people there on the line with you that are future or current professionals,
yes.
or at least on the professional path, where most everybody who lines up there has a bit of a dream of being a professional, at least, or is already one, or has already
yes.
a contract in sight, and has. Some of these kids have been, I'm assuming, riding for years. And I'm assuming that was a pretty cool moment standing on the line. And I've only done collegiate nationals, but you have that feeling like of a professional race setup, and there's people and pro kids there, and like the whole infrastructure around the race feels, I'm assuming for under 23 it's the same, feels professional. Like you have a lead car, and you have a lot of stuff that makes you feel like, this is exciting, right?
Yeah. So it was like my first race again.
Did you have to qualify in some way, by the way, for that? You have to be a Cat 2 or 1 at least?
Cat 2 for U23.
Yeah, for U23.
So I was still a 2 at that time. I hadn't gotten enough points. That was later in the season.
So were you like on the line, like a deer in the headlights?
I was just excited to be there.
Yeah.
That was a big deal for me, and that was like my first race again. That was like.
So that was the summer of 2019.
It's every time you upgrade. That was that was June of last year.
They were in Maryland, so it's close, like it was drivable, and
yes. So I did that, and with every category upgrade, it sort of feels like you're starting over again. It's really hard, and you don't really do well your first race, and in the new category.
Well, we just talked a little bit off camera, especially once you upgrade to Cat 2, which is sometimes like a bit of a dead end category because you're often you don't have just a Cat 2 field or even a Cat 2 3
Not a lot of opportunities to
and you're racing with guys of Cat 1, and some people at Cat 1 are former pros, close to, or just really good riders, right? And
a lot of experience.
And that means the top place are kind of snatched already, and they're guaranteed to go someone else, or at least that guy is going to be in the top 5. So I only have 4 spots left, and it's kind of demoralizing in some ways, right? Like, I used to race in Arizona, and it was like, oh, this race today, there's a couple of pros showing up. So I'm like, which is exciting though too, right? Because you're racing with some pretty good riders. So so that was exciting for you.
That was very exciting for me, and I was just excited to be there, and I didn't do very well.
In general or the national championship?
At the national championship, didn't do very well. It was sort of felt like my first race again. I made it most of the way, but then when the good riders came out to play, that was the end of my day.
Well, that's like, what's the Greg LeMond saying? It's like, or is it Greg LeMond? It's like, it never gets easier. Like
you just get faster. Yeah. So that was basically it. So that was exciting, and then later that season, I was going to every race. I was going to training races that were hours away. You're
looking at the calendar and you're like, where's the race and what that I can justify going to?
Drive 4.5 hours to do a 55-minute training crit somewhere to get 2 points, and then
is all this on your own, or
it's on my own?
So this is a lot of it's your own initiative, like you said, CRCA, Blue Ribbon, like most every team here is a local team. Well, there's maybe people occasionally
the exception of Foundation,
right?
That's.
But even they, I think, largely they go to some of the regional races, but even then, it's like whoever's available or has time or wants to, and it's not always everybody, right? So
So I was driving to lots of races, and I eventually got the points. So I had upgraded after the season. In 2019. And didn't get to race a ton. As a Cat 1, certainly no Cat 1 only races.
So congratulations.
Thank you.
Are in order.
That was
a
really
big goal for me. It feels like you kept chasing a carrot. That was the carrot.
That was a really big. That was a really big goal for me. Since from when I started riding, it was to get to Cat 1, and then I got it. And,
go ahead. You can see the smile on your face, so you're you're happy with that. But like now it's 2020, and again the season is obviously the season is obviously over, and like that is not exciting. So thank you. You're gonna really enjoy 2021, hopefully as like a full season of Cat 1. But that was kind of my last question, but maybe it's coming naturally right now. What's next because like some people get to Cat 1 and like, oh, is Ben Gorodetsky not going to retire? 21, like you've reached everything you want to reach.
It happens a lot.
And you kind of lose maybe motivation because that's a goal that you can reach in like some systematic ways and through a lot of passion and hours of driving and finding races and going to races. Obviously talent and dedication, but what are you doing now? Is being on New England Devo part of the plan for
it's a great team.
Because in theory you could race 40-50 years still, however long you want to. Or is it gonna be like one of those people who get into the sport real hard, commit real hard, and then at some point they encounter an issue and then people burn out? Right. So what is
I think it gets really hard. I think the sport just gets really hard. Like you said, Cat 2. You just get your Cat 2 and it just gets super difficult.
And because at that level it's often that, for a lot of people, including me kind of, it's like you reach that level and it's either putting in a lot more training hours and a lot more dedication, maybe taking it maybe too seriously for a lot of people,
or not doing well, which is not super fun.
Right.
I mean, maybe some people, they just want to get out and race, ride hard. But I think for most people, they
discovering cross. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think for most people, they want to go to a race and do well.
Mm-hmm. Well, which is why you compete, right?
Yeah.
And we like the camaraderie. We're part of the community. That's all great. But you don't want to go to a race and get, say, plainly your ass dropped, right? And then people maybe when they lose a little motivation, they go to cross or gravel now, or they go to the track, or they discover other things where they can kind of restart that cycle of upgrading and getting better or experiencing. But you are at the beginning of this still. So what's next for you? Sorry, I kept cutting you off with ideas.
I enjoy doing the local races just as much as I like doing the big races. It's super fun, and I like the level that I race at. I like doing big races. I don't really have too many.
You keep using that word big race, so I just for the people who may not be familiar, what's a big race to you? Like obviously then not the, and I'm fully with you on board. I'm not teasing you. Like, but the local races are the park races here, Prospero and Central Park, Floyd, even the other crits that are hosted by CRCA or other people like Orchard Beach or the New Jersey races, and everything that's within an hour or two is probably fair to say it's not big.
Right.
But tell me, what do you mean with a big race? Maybe Bear Mountain is big, but I don't know.
Bear Mountain, New England Crit Week. Those are
a week of criterium races in like July, August. Is it up in Massachusetts?
July,
mostly?
Yeah.
New Hampshire, I think, too.
Intelligentsia, which I've yet to do.
Which are, so Intelligentsia, and you're probably going to bring up two of America's Dairylands.
Dairyland as well.
Which are the famous Midwest kind of crit weeks, or even longer than weeks.
Yeah, they're 10 or 11 days.
If you can afford it and you like criteriums, you should go. But it's obviously hard from here to travel and with the bike and commit, and it's like 10 days, or you can only go for a day, that's fine too. But so those are goals.
So I had done Gateway last year, so that was
in St. Louis. A little shorter, but also 3-4 days of racing, right? 4.
I only raced Sunday and Monday.
Okay,
I don't race on Saturdays.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second too.
So those are just some of the bigger races. Obviously, there's more that there's other big races out there that I'd like to do, but those are just some of the more important on the calendar.
And so these are like, let's say 2021 goal races, or just like being there is the goal, and then maybe also getting a result, or
doing well.
Just kind of doing well. Who determines doing well? You yourself, the coach, the people around you?
Me.
You.
Yeah.
What's doing well then? Can you put a name to it? I'm just going to.
Well, doing well is winning.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Which is why we're all on the line, but the reality, obviously, as we're always told, and they say that I was just watching the tour, they always say that there two is like only one guy can win, right? So like for me, like I'm always like, okay, well, obviously I should always say I want to go be on the start line to win, but realistically, like I have a smile on my face, or I'm happy if I get, let's say, if it's at Floyd, like top 10, or I really want a podium is great, because, but like let's go, a win is like, yes, that's obviously what the goal is, but winning. Okay.
I think a podium. Yeah. I won't be too mad about a podium. It won't ruin my day.
Yeah. I would imagine. I would hope so.
Yeah, but like I said, when I started riding, I want to win the race. I don't want to. I don't want to finish or try to sprint for 15th place or something.
Are you going to travel there with your team then?
Yeah,
too, or?
Yeah. Those are some of the big goal races for them.
And you're going to get some support with that.
Yeah.
And from New England Devo in terms of traveling there and as a team, and I know a lot of these races have host housing, but like you guys are going there together, and that makes it a lot easier too. Obviously.
Yeah. Logistically.
Yeah. I would imagine so.
And you need support at these races. You know, there are big teams that
you can do it on your own, but it's a lot harder.
Yeah. In some ways, maybe easier on certain courses. To be alone, you just not too much to think about, but for the most part, it's pretty important.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, I think there's no question that it will help you do better.
Yes.
If you have support. Or there's a good chance that you're going to do better. And that means then, in some ways, you're definitely what I jokingly call, and I will definitely tease people about, that you're the domestic elite pro, right? You're like the elite amateur pro is what I want to call it. Sorry, that's what I want to call it. The guy who is like, or girl who is, and it's a little different on the guy side, I think, because there's still more density in terms of just the number of people there who are like they're really good at their local level, and I think we can say that about you, and even at the regional level, and then you put in a lot of hours, you have a coach, you're training hard, you're really working your ass off, you're dedicated, and then the question is like, again, like the goal is like, okay, am I happy with that? Am I happy with the results here, or do I want to keep pushing and just see what the next step can be or is, right? Do you reflect on, like, do you get feedback like you're taking it too seriously? Is your coach slowing you down sometime, or like what are you? Because I'm gonna push you a little bit on the domestic elite amateur, which is like, which is the stereotype of the racer takes it a little bit too seriously. Do you feel like sometimes you're in that, but at the same time, I'm not. So I'm making fun of it, but I also respect it, right?
I think I enjoy it for what it is.
Right.
I enjoy that, you know, you go to a P12 race and everyone puts in a lot of time. You know, anyone who's up there anyways, putting in a lot for time.
Either that, or you have a ton of talent, and but even then,
they train super hard, and they work hard. They work hard for it. And I like that for what it is. I like that people have day jobs but still train. You know, just a ton. And do well, and they're pretty into it. So as funny as it is, maybe it's a little bit funny for you know, a masters racer who's training 40 hours a week and is still doing all that, you know, racing for 20 years and is still putting in, you know, mega miles. But I like it for what it is.
Well, and you're 21, and this is the time to do it, right? I would assume. I mean, I would probably say that would be my advice. Now's the time. Right? You might not get the chance, or you might get injured, or you get a job that's super intense, or whatever. So I think there's it's funny because we want to be encouraging to young people and like riders, but at the same time we're like, oh, this guy's taking himself way too seriously, and I'm just gonna call out a local team here, good guys, like they're doing a really good job at being like build a team, very competitive, talented, competitive, dedicated. They really put out a lot of social media out there that basically is always about hard work and working hard, and they do. And
it works,
But there's people who really respect that and admire that in a lot of ways, and the pictures are really nice.
For sure.
Nice sometimes. But there's people who make fun of that too, right? So because you're kind of in that, we're amateurs. And I do too. Like I said,
there's a fine line.
There's a fine line, right?
For sure.
Between taking yourself too seriously but at the same time, like I said, like you also don't want to be like, oh, young gun, like, you know, what do you know, and like, why you take yourself too seriously? But we also want to be like, no, go have fun and like go to those races and like be the best version that you can if you want to be, right? Like, I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But it sounds like you're getting a lot of positive feedback then overall. A lot of encouragement and
for sure,
people around you. And when you ride through the park, you still talk, or the Dinos guys are still like, "How you doing?" Or
I don't know. I don't think anyone remembers that. I don't think. No one. Definitely, no one remembers that.
You look a little different now.
A little bit older. Not, you know, I'm not 14 or 15 anymore.
And they've seen a lot of guys riding through the park.
Yeah,
totally.
So they definitely don't remember, but
that's okay. I mean, hey, I don't remember everybody I've ridden with before.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
But so that's awesome. You have goals, and you already mentioned. I think when you talked about Gateway, and it came out the first time on my radar too last year. I think when you were in the lead on the Castelli series,
right.
You had, I think, like I said, you can correct me. I think you had won the first 2 races and then maybe got second on one of them or something like that.
Podium third.
Yeah. Okay. And
might have gotten third on the on the third race.
But clearly, this is a race series.
Yes.
You get the yellow jersey. That is really nice, even for an amateur racer.
Yeah.
Like, again, like we don't want to take ourselves so seriously, but it feels nice.
It's nice.
You feel, everybody who races for the reason of, with a little bit of an ambition of why not, right? Or I really want that, which is totally fine. And then I think I knew that you were Jewish.
Yes.
But I think there was an announcement on social media like you're not going to defend it, or there's going to be able to defend it.
Right.
Because it just so happened, and it's always how it is. It just so happened that the first 3 races were all on a Sunday.
Yes.
And then the 4th one was on a Saturday, and after that, I think they were
all Saturdays.
All Saturdays.
So the first 3 were Sunday, and the last 3 were Saturday. Just the way it works out.
Just every year I think it's a little different.
Yeah, a little bit different.
Whatever dates Charlie is able to get from the park.
He has to work around other races,
Right. And obviously the reality is that 90% or whatever of races in this country, bicycle races for CRCA cycling, are on a Saturday or a Sunday.
Most.
Which means, and I realized it then, that you're observant, that you take the Saturday off.
Yes.
For bike riding period, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Yeah.
So no riding on Saturdays, no racing.
Yeah.
So that usually takes me out of any sort of overall general classification. Stage race. Mm-hmm. Anything like that, but it's
because they all go at least one day. They do something on Saturday.
Most any stage race for sure. So it's just one of those times when real life has to come before bike racing. One of the few times anyway.
One of the few times. We're talking about being super serious, but you're also very serious about your religion, your culture, and you stick to the religious belief there. Did you hesitate for a moment? I don't know if that, but it feels like because you're so dedicated, that was the line. You draw the line.
That was the line for me.
But that's
just real life and bike racing.
Real life and bike racing, right? But did you get some feedback from people where people like, why you're not racing, or they didn't know?
Of course. Always explaining it, always telling people like, oh, I'm not gonna race Saturday.
Do you get a lot of people who are like, why, or they didn't get it, or because I mean,
in New York City, it's fairly no one's gonna say that they've never heard of it before.
I think it's true. The Jewish community is present enough here for sure. I think when you get people from out of town, maybe it'd be different. And I think a lot of people, there's Bike for Chai, and there's other things in the Jewish community that are connected with bicycles.
That's a great, That's just a massive organization.
Right.
They have 500 or 600 riders.
And I see some ladies with the skirts riding in the park, and so there's a lot of people clearly who ride, so I think there's an awareness for that in New York City. But so people were asking, and then they. And you were like, I don't race Saturdays.
Yeah, so I had to tell Charlie that. Obviously, I was in the yellow jersey, and I told Charlie I wasn't going to be at the next races, and I think he had posted something how I wasn't going to be in in the jersey, and the person who was in second on GC then got to wear the jersey. So I had a big lead in that race.
Yeah, you did.
Obviously, I'd done well the first 3 races, so I had a big lead, and it got down to the last race, and I thought
I was still in the running in the series.
I was still in the running
despite doing half the races.
So I ended up winning the series.
It's a big accomplishment, right?
That was great. You get a trophy. You don't get trophies at a lot of races.
No, and you can say that you did. Despite what you just said, that it's almost impossible, you did manage to win an overall series.
So it's never on my radar. Any sort of overall, it's just not.
You live for the day.
Yes. And there's benefits to that. You don't have to. You don't have to. Certainly in a stage race, maybe not in a park race where it could be weeks apart. But definitely in a stage race, I did the Buffalo stage race just a few months ago.
Yeah. Okay.
Socially distanced. Yeah. Socially distanced stage race.
I was thinking about it for a while, but that's a long trip too.
It was. It was a long trip. So the TT and the crit were on Saturday, and I had just raced for Sunday. So I think I raced a little bit differently.
And you were fresher maybe than a couple of guys.
I was fresh. I didn't do 2 races the day before.
Yeah.
And I just had to think about that one day.
So that sounds like you see the positives.
Yeah. There are positives. But also only doing half a stage race or missing a couple days in a longer race or something like that. But it is what it is.
It's bittersweet, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
Are you, what was I going to say? That's your build and rest day then, Saturdays?
Yes.
That's a good thing in some ways. Your coach is happy. Like, you're not one of those guys who's going to be like, it's my rest day, but I'm still going to ride 2 hours.
Yeah, I ride every day, so getting me to take a day off is not easy. So that's the off day.
Yeah, so that, you're making the best out of it, I think. And you're going to keep, when you go to an Agencia or you go to an Crit Week, same thing. You're going to sit out a day.
Yeah. Change the tactics a little bit. I just get I get to be fresh for the next day. Most people aren't because they had a race.
When you talk to England Devo or teammates, and again, what we talked about, that what's in the future for you, and you want to kind of keep going for a while now, and that's, while we have to have a lot of respect for that, I think, for your vigilance there, and like for your values, like that is also something that, well, probably nobody will say, well, we can't do anything, we can't help you any further because you're not racing Saturdays, but that's the reality, right? Also.
Yeah. So it's definitely,
which I'm sorry, that hurts probably to talk about, but like
it's a little bit of a dead end. But New England Devo was really nice about it, and Blue Ribbon as well. But I had raced for them for 2 years. But yeah, certainly at this level, it's okay. But maybe at a higher level, it would be an issue.
So that's not a stop for you. Like I said, you're sitting here, you're motivated. You rode over here. I'm assuming you did a training right. The realization of that, and I don't know if you knew that from the beginning or if that was always like you knew that was going to be a bit of a stumbling stone for any really high ambitions, but you've made your peace with that, or you always had your peace with that, kind of.
Yeah, I didn't. Like I said, it was very slow. It was very gradual getting into the sport. So it definitely wasn't something that, beyond like, oh, that race is on a Saturday, I'm gonna have to find another one. Beyond that, it wasn't really. It didn't really cross my mind.
Totally.
Because I didn't think of racing at a high level or stage races or anything like that. It was just a local race, and this park race is on a Saturday. Well, so there's a Sunday one in 2 weeks, and that's
it was a big deal.
Yeah,
totally. And other people have family obligations always on Sundays or on Saturdays, or it's a different religion, they can't race Sundays or whatever it is, right? I think there's a lot of people in this country who are dealing with that. I haven't heard of anybody at the pro level for sure in cycling, and we've just off camera talked a little bit about the Israeli Cycling Academy team and the big push towards cycling there, and so maybe it's gonna be a case where somebody really talented also is running into that issue.
But for sure,
there's people for sure already have.
I'm sure.
But and I have to apologize. This is the reason why I'm like stuffing my face and Ben is not eating anything. It's not because he's like weight conscious, as most cyclists are, and we've talked about that. And I feel really bad, but I owe him a meal at a kosher restaurant.
Yes.
But he said he's okay with that, so
that's all right.
There will be another time where we can work that out. There's plenty of places in Brooklyn who are kosher.
For sure.
Yeah. And probably in the city too.
Yeah.
So we'll get back to that some other point. But on that, I asked him also, and I'm going to ask you that again.
Yes.
So a lot of the requirement to be kosher is actually not as much of a hindrance as I first thought, in that a lot of the cycling-specific nutrition, like when you talk about all the gels from the different companies, I'm just going to name a few now, whatever, Science and Sport, Goo, and Cliff, and scratch laps and all those. And you can tell, but you know which ones are kosher and which are not.
Yes.
And you have to do your research.
It says it right on it, actually.
Yeah, there's a little similar, right? I've seen it on some products.
Yeah, so it'll say it right on it.
Yeah. And you can see it online. And
most everything is.
It's like being or whatever, and you have they have certification for that or whatever.
Yeah.
So, but you said it's not really a limiter. It's
most of the not for cycling nutrition. I never felt like it was a big deal for anything cycling related. If one company wasn't, there was another that was. Scratch, Cliff, Goo.
Yeah.
Most.
Pretty much anything you would take or want to take is good.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Is it a problem traveling around them to the races?
A little bit.
Yeah,
a little bit.
So. Yeah. You bring your own food?
Rice cooker.
Yeah,
my own food.
So you're doing the classic cycling thing.
Yeah.
So that works.
Yeah. That works out.
Okay. That's interesting. But you haven't been you've never fortunately been in that position. You plan ahead now, and you're not in a position where you're starving before, after a race.
No, it's not. That's not too terrible. Yeah.
It doesn't require much. I'm asking a lot of questions because it's interesting, and I am not. I'm in the fortunate position for myself where I don't have to worry about that most of the time. Yeah. Or really at all, because of my beliefs in my nutrition.
Yeah.
But it's interesting for me to see. And I think for others probably too. Just kind of hear about it. It's definitely making your life a little trickier and winning
just have
overall
to think
series.
about it.
But yeah, but
I think most people who are traveling to races are also traveling with their own food.
Yes. So it's I don't just grab whatever most of the time either. Exactly.
Yeah.
So you think about it ahead of time. Switching back a little bit too. So we've talked about your kind of gradual, on your own kind of path in some ways, from somebody who wasn't really connected to the sport, and you didn't go through a traditional junior program. You joined the sport on the later side, but you're still junior. You're only 21 now. Do you feel like now that you've raced against other young folks and also outside the city and went to under 23 nationals and you're now in England Devo, where there's a lot of other young riders and they have a junior team too. Do you feel like you missed out on a step there or something like that? Like you're behind in your knowledge or skills, or do you I'm just just like the other guys?
I think certainly if I had started training and was a little bit more exposed to the sport or to racing at a high level, I certainly could have been better at a younger age.
Yeah.
There are 12-year-olds out there that have coaches and nice bikes and they're super into it and they're training every day. But I don't think I'd be faster today.
Okay.
Had I gotten on a junior team or had a coach when I was super young or anything like that.
So you're not oh my god, I wish 10 years ago I would have
I don't think so.
Okay. Yeah.
Maybe I would have liked to race at the junior level a little bit more. But locally there's really very few junior races. I think I just did one. In a few years racing as a junior, maybe 3 years. I don't feel like I missed out on a step.
Yeah, because a lot of people talk about junior development and all that, but it's obviously possible to go your path too, and maybe you're a year or two later than other people in terms of getting to your level, but you're very competitive and you're gonna have a lot of fun, I think, riding bikes still. On that note, riding in New York City, riding around New York City, I always joke that training here is kind of hard. Some people disagree because the parks are great. I think the parks can be great depending on what time you go in there. Where do you train? Where do you ride? How do you riding in New York City? And do you sometimes wish you'd be some of these other elite amateur pros or whatever you want to call them that are going to Arizona and Colorado and for training or just move there because they want to live the dream of potentially becoming a pro cyclist.
It's good weather.
Yeah,
you can't blame them.
Can't blame them. It's pretty nice.
There's good weather.
It's pretty hot in Arizona this summer. I tell you, I lived there for 4 years. It's too hot for me.
Yeah, but it doesn't snow.
It does. If you don't like the snow, it's a good place to be. There's the reason there's lots of people from Minnesota down there.
I think the best part is also the worst part. So I ride a lot in the park. It could be crowded and just going in circles and which can be boring. But if you do it right, it can be really good training. And there's always someone to ride with.
Yeah.
You go out like any morning in the summer, and there's just dozens and dozens of
I feel like you always, I think
friends and familiar faces.
You always run into somebody you know and you can ride with and chat with for a little bit.
So I think it could be annoying, but it's also I think it's a little bit unique.
That riding in the park and
you just see so many people.
And you can join for a loop or two, or do your own thing after a loop or two, or so that's where you train. The park.
The park, longer rides. I'll go up 9W, Nyack.
Standard.
Yeah, the standard Alpine.
You're big on like you have a kicker?
I do have an indoor trainer. Yeah.
Okay, so a little bit of that.
Not big on it. I don't like it. I don't do it if I don't have to. I'll go out when it's cold. Unless it's really bad, but it's not.
So growing up in the city, and again, like bike riding before with the mountain bike only, was it intimidating leaving the park at points?
It definitely took me a while.
Because the park is a comfort zone, right? Where you have to worry about, for the most part, not really about lights. You have to worry about some other, but it's pedestrians and other cyclists versus like cars everywhere, and you want a narrow bike lane or something.
It took me a while. It definitely took me a while to get out of the park. I think I might have. I think it was New Year's Day of 2016 that I rode to Paramount for the first time.
Okay, which is like out of the city, over George Washington Bridge, up 9W.
The whole thing.
Yeah, which is kind of the standard go-to northern route that most everywhere you live, certainly Manhattan does. And the city.
So it took me a while to get out, but then I started doing that, going on my own. And
was that an organized ride on New Year's Day or something that you joined?
I think it was just with 2 other guys from the park.
And you just got a routine with that then, and now we're here in the East Village, so it's pretty crazy getting here, but it's just what you do in New York City. It's a standard.
Pretty standard.
I think you just get used to the craziness, I always say, and you just expect the worst out of everybody.
You learn the better routes.
You know the better routes.
Bike path isn't always the best route.
No, it's not always.
It's not always the fastest, not always the safest.
It's certainly not always the fastest, and it is even not the safest always. I agree with that.
So you sort of learn the better routes, I think.
We could have a whole conversation about that, I think. Many accidents on that side, or like crashes? We talked about one race-related crash, but overall you've had pretty good luck so far with that?
Pretty good luck in races.
In races?
Training, I've had a couple accidents for sure.
Okay. But all minor?
1 or 2. Yeah, all minor.
Okay.
Minor. Hoping to keep it that way.
We will all knock on wood for that, for sure.
Yes.
I think we can influence that to some extent, but you always, especially in New York City, depend on other people. Totally. So I'm looking at my list of questions. And then also you're young and you've now raced in a few different places, and now you're on a team with people from other places. Do you feel like New York, your Brooklyn Prospect Park, New York perspective is different from how other people approach it, or do you feel like you fit in and all right, I'm just one of the young guys on the team and it's not really any different?
I think going to big races for the first time was a little bit of an experience. A lot different than a park race for sure. Park race may be a little bit easier to sit in than some other races.
So that's more from a sporting perspective, it's a different level. A little bit.
We don't really have any races with hills. No races with hills.
I think I can say that.
I think that's a fair statement.
Bear Mountain excluded, somebody will always say, but there's this race. I'm like, but by and large, if you're racing in the city, 90% plus of your races will be. You could do 50 races
in a year, and they're all flat. If you're staying local. So just hilly races and a lot harder. Even Floyd, it's very hard. You have crosswind and all that, but you're still sitting in. It's flat.
For sure.
So definitely just different terrain. Different terrain, different kinds of courses. Was a little bit of an experience.
So you learned that, there's real hills outside of New York City.
There's some hard riding. For sure.
Which is great. You get the opportunity now to go out of the city and travel, and I think there's a lot of New Yorkers, for better or worse, who don't leave the city. For talk about bike riders, because you can race, like you said, 50 times a year, right? And it's super easy, and you don't have to. You can ride to most of the race with a bike and all that, so you can't blame anybody. But it's good to see the world out there too, when you have the opportunity.
Yeah.
Coming kind of to the end of this here, we could talk forever about racing and all that, but I want to kind of start wrapping up, mindful of your time. I got more riding to do my own time, but in retrospect, do you think like the New York like kind of road racing community that you know, because you're really a road racer, and only a road racer, I think it's fair to say.
Yes.
Was it really easy to join that? It sounded like you said, a progression, but like you had the motivation, but it seemed like you found it fairly easy to become a part of it. Or was it kind of off-putting or hard riding with people in the park, or do you think we should do some? Was it easy to find a team and understand how the system works and like this whole world, like for somebody, because you start from zero, like no knowledge, like completely like
no knowledge of the sport. I think most juniors who come into the sport have a parent who rides or a family member, or they're exposed to the sport in some way and they get them on, you know, a junior team super young. But it's rarely the 12-year-old who's like, oh, I want to do that, on their own. There's no 12-year-old on a junior team who doesn't have a parent that's into cycling. So I think it was easy to, you know, meeting people in the park. Like I said, you just see so many people. I think it definitely took a while. It took a while for me. It was like just like getting into racing. It was a slow progression. I think if I didn't race, it would have been harder to get into the cycling community a little bit. Because you ride on your own, then you're riding on your own. You're not seeing people at races. You know, you go to a race, you just see the same people at every race,
especially in New York City. I think locally, I get that feeling.
So you could see, you know, you race. If you race Saturday, Sunday, Tuesday at Floyd, you see the same people 3 days a week. Maybe you'll see them in the park. So I think it's a little bit easier if you race. If you don't race, it's probably a little bit more difficult. To sort of get integrated into the cycling community. There's, I think, through social media nowadays, a little bit more of an opportunity probably to connect a little bit, but even then you got to know where to go, and it's not like. But maybe it's a different subgroup within the community. Gravel racing, you know, people gravel rides or just group rides or stuff like that. So there's definitely a lot of different sub communities within. Within the New York City cycling scene. We've explicitly talked about, and only because of road racing, but I think that's because you're a road racer, and you know, I think that's weird. Like, do you even have a bike other than your road bike? Just have a road bike. That's doesn't. What I figured. You don't even commute on anything else. No, I'm not into gravel. I'm not into. You don't
cross. Have to be. Right.
It's just not my thing. Right. I know tons of people enjoy it. So many people are really into cross and gravel and
how do you go to school?
Adventure. Train. Well, now it's all. Now
it's a different story. But usually you don't ride your bike. You wouldn't have ridden your bike to campus or anything. Now
it's all remote anyway.
True. More time for training potentially. If you don't have to commute to school.
Save a couple hours there. in commute.
So which is great. Let's finish up. I think I'm going to check if I have one more question, but I'm going to come back to the question of, over these years, what have been some good learning or experience, or what has been some good advice that you've gotten, and what is some advice where you're like, in retrospect, maybe that's not the right, or that wasn't the best piece of advice, or that was really more of had a more negative effect on my experience than a positive effect.
Good advice is stay off the front, for sure.
Stay off the front. But then nobody wants to be on the front. I know.
But good advice is definitely don't ride on the front. And
only when you really have to.
Only when you have to. Save energy. Some other good advice would be hard one. Don't ride that hard.
Don't ride that hard.
When I started riding. When I started riding, it was just full gas all the time, super hard, like all through winter. Every ride was full gas.
If you're not out of breath, you're not doing it right.
Every ride was just as hard as I could go. But some people told me I better knock it off. And that was
way.
In a very friendly way. I better stop riding so hard all the time. And I think that was definitely good advice.
Okay. And you're following that mostly now.
Yeah, you could take 2 days off, and you're not going to get slow. Yeah, rest days are important.
Yeah.
So that's some good advice. I'm going to have to think about the bad advice.
Yeah, I can give you a second there. That's good. Well, hey.
Yeah.
If you didn't get any bad advice, I'm not going to push you to say you did get bad advice.
Yeah, nothing that I remember specifically.
It's just, I think, it's maybe more that there's so much advice out there, especially now, maybe again, we go online and there's all these memes now and all these accounts and Global Cycling Network, they probably have a training video on it, something of training related every day that they put out, and you're like, you can listen to it all, and I think it can be overwhelming and confusing almost. So who do you listen to now? Let's put it that way. Like maybe that's the right way. Who is where?
So I work with a coach, Ben Wolfe.
Okay.
From Connecticut.
Who's, I'm hesitating. You can tell me better if he's a current or former pro at this point.
He has retired.
He has retired. Okay. But
he raced for Jelly Belly. Then some other teams. So I work with him and listen to him for.
You listen to him.
I pretend to listen to him sometimes.
I think that's a healthy coach rider relationship to some extent. I don't think the coaches expect you.
It's give and take.
Give and take. So that's your main source. But any like memes or websites or YouTube channels you follow, or any preferred advice, or that's more for entertainment?
That's probably more for entertainment. But definitely when I started riding, there were all sorts of GCN videos. Few, and they were very early ones, but those were like changing flats and cleats and just bike maintenance and all that.
Which is super helpful. Totally.
And now there's just so much more.
Well, thank you for that, and thank you for the conversation. 2021. Let's end with like. What's the, maybe not the ultimate dream, but what's a realistic, achievable goal? What do you have your eyes set on for 2021? Assuming we can go back to normal-ish racing. What are the goals? Is it a certain race performance? Is it an overall accomplishment, or is it just generally getting better? What is it?
It's getting better. I don't think there's no specific one race, because it's a lot to put it on one race, right? Because you put it all on one race, and it could very, very easily not go well. So I'm gonna try not to.
I'm not gonna.
You could get a flat, or you could drop a chain. You could get a flat, or the silliest thing, really. And it could just not go well. So I won't put it all on one race. But I think just doing well at some of the larger target races, national races, that would be the goal for me.
Are you going to try to go to nationals again too? Then? National championships. So that's a big break. I think target race we can say in the sense that it's a target to be there, and it's a target to be maybe a step better than last year. For example. So that's exciting. I am pretty sure I'm going to see you on the bike in the park or around, especially in the high vis kit now, which is like...
It's a good safety color.
It's a good safety color, with the bike too, that's in all orange. And then I'm hoping, fingers crossed, in early March 2021.
We get to go back to racing.
I'll see you on the bike.
Yes.
Thank you very much for this conversation. Ben Gorodetsky. Watch out for this young man. Follow his wheel. Make him right at the front. Thank you.